Yahoo! Prof here, and I've got news. Not great news. B580, since it's that 2 1/4 slot, no fit. Probably gonna have to go the way of a Sparkle or maybe a different brand. I need a true 2 slot, otherwise I can't use my 10 gig Ethernet. Now we're on to the next thing, and what is that? You're like, no, you already fixed that NUC. Yeah, I did. That's the old dead 10th gen. And then what's that? Another dead 10th gen. That's another new NUC 14 Pro. We still can't really reliably get the 15s, even though they're out. And they cost, I'm going to say like $200 a pop more. So we got RAM, we got a new NUC. We're going to put that together. And we're hoping, just like the previous one, where that install Windows is broken, but it will not repair. However, when we went to the new NUC, as soon as those drives were put in a new working system, boom, Windows not broken. What the fuck? Yeah, so it actually wasn't Windows that was broken, it's the hardware that's broken, breaking Windows. So we're hoping that that is the same case here, because this system was not as jank as the other one, but it was running slow. Tried to fix it, Windows broke. So basically ran SFC, it fixed issues. Tried to run DISM, couldn't work. Tried that twice, no dice. Restarted, went with a check disk. She never came back up. Oh, another thing. Don't buy, I tried to cheap out on DisplayPort to HDMI adapters. That says 8K TM registered adapter black from Cable Matters. Doesn't fucking work. We got the work dock under one of those speakers. I have a Sabrent that goes... No, Sabrent, sorry. A StarTech adapter in there. I tried my passive one. Those only do up to like 1080 or 1200p. That is a 4K 120 Hz monitor. I don't expect to be able to use the 120 Hz through dock, right? But I want at least 4K 60. And with a passive adapter, you're getting at best 4K 30. I happen to have a StarTech adapter that was in my work bag, my work backpack there, that did HDMI 2.0B. That's not the full HDMI 2.1, whereas this bad boy really wants the full juiced HDMI 2.1. So what I did is, it does work for now. Obviously I've been working on it because basically these LG monitors only have one display port and 2 HDMIs. Well, the desktop needs the display ports, you know, boom, boom, boom. Especially for that middle guy with the 4K 120 Hertz, right? Or no, 4K 240 Hertz. So it needs those. So that means that the dock needs to run off all HDMIs. However, it can't. It's got 2 DisplayPort, 2 HDMI, and you can only use 3 of those ports at once. And thus, these guys will work fine on just straight HDMI, no problem. That guy, being that I'd like to at least get 4K 60, if not better out of it, needs that adapter. So I use my StarTech to HDMI 2.0B, which will at least get you 4K 60, I think, with HDR. I'm not 100% sure there. It works fine, but doesn't get me the full thing. So Club 3D makes a, like, I don't know, it was like 60, 70, maybe $80 adapter that does DisplayPort to HDMI 2.1 full bandwidth, all the beans, all the juju, all the, you know, like I could run my LG OLED TV out here, which is 4K 120 HDR, like 10 or 12-bit, etc. You know, I could run that off that adapter from Club 3D, but I'm a cheap guy. And this Cable Matters, which says it's an 8K TM adapter, you know, but it isn't certified. Like, it's not a specific HDMI spec. It just says HDMI 8K in black. It had good reviews. I've used Cable Matters before with cables. I think on Prime Day it was like 20 bucks, which is actually even cheaper than that StarTech 2.0B one, and theoretically this is like a 2.1 adapter. Should have known it was too good to be true. That doesn't even output via the dock. So, being that they're not calling out a specific, they're calling it's HDMI certified, but they're not calling out a specific like spec, like generation. And I know I've talked before about cables not needing, like their cables are not HDMI 2.1. They're not. They're HDMI standard, high speed HDMI. Sometimes you can have like with Ethernet and stuff. And then there's ultra high speed HDMI. That's the one you need for at least 2.0B. So basically 4K 60 and up. You really want that ultra high speed HDMI. Whereas the ports, which is what this is, right there, right? This is an adapter, not a cable, active as well. That's also the difference between the passive StarTech that actually uses a really thick cable and just passively goes from DisplayPort to HDMI. There's no active, they're not changing the protocol, so it's just which protocols are backwards compatible. It's basically all equivalent to single link DVI, which is like 2048 by 1156 at 60 hertz, I believe, is technically where it maxes out. I actually had one of those monitors, a Samsung. Oh, that was a nice monitor. Just remembering. Also remembering, I never got it back. But that was a lovely monitor. Most cases, what this defaults to as a maximum is 1080p 60, or if you're old school like me and you got like a PA246 from Asus up there, 1200p. Some of those, like, those might even be at 75 hertz as well, not just at 60. That's passive. For active, you actually need a chip in there, and it's actually going to convert, and this is important if you're using Linux as well, because Linux does not have proper native support for HDMI. You actually need to convert one of your DisplayPort ports to HDMI, like with an active adapter like this, to get proper HDMI out in Linux. Apparently, Wendell has talked about over at Level 1 Text that the ARC cards actually natively do that on board. It's actually a DisplayPort out of the card, then adapted to HDMI. Super interesting. But this does not define a spec. It just says 8K HDMI. Garbage. Any of the StarTech ones I've had so far have been great. And to be truthful, if I want that thing ripping, I probably am going to have to either pick a better StarTech one up, but I think those are in the 50 range, like a 2.1 one. But if I'm going that far, I should probably pick up the firmware updatable Club 3D, like that guy right there, except the adapter. And actually just pay up and spend money on a real one. Yeah. The other thing I was going to cover in this video is I reached out to Club 3D because their cables, like, I thought I was getting fake cables, and I was like, that connector is different. Everything else looks legit, but that connector is different than the one that I've been using for the better part of 10 years. They all look like this, right? And I probably bought 100 of them over the years, literally. Not even figuratively, but like literally. Between all the monitors that you guys have seen me have, right, and you gotta plug a mouse in order to use a mouse. And besides, like when I was doing, on-site IT support, like I said, probably like 100 of them, if not more. And they changed them. Well, I reached out to make sure they weren't counterfeit, and they're not. The design that you see here with the thinner wire, it is still VESA certified. Same model, they pulled a Nipex because this model is already certified, already on people's parts list, already on people's approved cable lists. They didn't want to mess with that, right? It is a thinner wire, but it is still VESA certified. This is the new one. So if you see these sort of like rounded off connectors, they also have like metal on that part of the connector there, which on the old one, that would have all been had an overmold over it. I don't know if that's for a better ground or how they did that. They asked me if I was having issues, and I said, nope. I've just been buying this for so long, and these are so different, I want to make sure they weren't fake, and they're not. Turns out what happened was the mold. 7 years they used that old mold, the guy that I just showed you down there, that 2 of these monitors are using right now. That mold is worn out after 7 years, and they want to continue making cables, obviously, so they had to get a new mold made. And obviously, if you're going to make a new mold, you might as well update it, optimize it, obviously, with a thinner cable, if they can still get it certified for a 10-foot length. That's going to save them money. It's going to save you bulk. Yeah, but either way, if you see a cable like that, that one, the one with the half-rounded side on it, that is a legitimate cable. It is not a fake one. Don't think just because you bought the older ones that it's fake like I did. It's not. That is the new cables from them. I did ask them, and we'll see if this happens. I asked them to, hey, please, can you update it with an image of your new cable on your website and on your sales page? Like, be like, new 2025 edition cable or something. Just so that people like me, who have bought this before, or even just, I would be surprised if they're not getting returns on Amazon, because the item pictured looks completely different than the item in the box. And because it's a thinner cable, it feels like you might be getting, not the right thing. Or somebody's cheating you. They're like, oh, they took the box and they put a worse cable in there, and they kept the good one and then like repackaged it. Or maybe they got the packaging and they're making fake cables. I don't know. That's what was going through in my head, because fake HDMI and DisplayPort cables are a legit thing. But these guys are not. This was changed beginning of 2025. And I was surprised because I bought the one that is here on this setup in 2025 because I had to steal the cable that uses for my test bed to go into my work bag because I had used one. And I needed another one for somebody else. So I had to steal that one temporarily and then replace it. And now we're replacing the one in the work bag that I normally keep as an extra for testing around here. And when I do on-site work, and then if they're like, hey, since you used that to make my thing work, over at our place and that computer works now, can I just have that cable? And I'm like, yeah, pay up. So we're restocking, and I was very confused that this looked so legit, but yet different. Nope, it is legitimate. Just for those of you that might be buying new cables, they do have... These are DisplayPort 1.4. They have DisplayPort 2.0. And they have like full bandwidth, which is what, DP80, at 6 foot, which I don't believe prior to Club 3D making a cable, anybody had more than 1 meter. They didn't have more than 1 meter of a DP80 cable, meaning that means that your monitor could only be not 6 feet away. It can only be 3 feet away from your computer. That is nuts. Like, I think the 6 foot cable isn't long enough. And then the 10 foot, I think, is like a DP56 or something. But they do have the newer ones. I'll let you know, though, if you wanted even the DP56 version of a DP 2.0, it will be double that DP 1.4. So, though a lot of people may actually only need DP 1.2 cables, it was not worth me stocking in my bag the lower-end DP 1.2 to save people a couple bucks. I mean, like, if they needed a bunch of them for a ton of monitors, yeah, we could not custom order them, but just order them off Amazon, right? Then you'd save a couple bucks per cable. But when I'm using this for testing and carrying it around, I generally just want to have a cable I know is going to work. So them spending $22 on a cable instead of $17 for one cable. Like, nobody gives a fuck. You're better off just carrying the more compatible cable. And also, I always carry a 10-foot because the number of times, like, they may even have a good 6-foot cable, but the reason why you're there is because it doesn't make it. Just buy the 10-foot one. But I can't justify double. You know, even my main setup, this guy is still only DP 1.4 with display stream compression, DSC. And they just launch those DP 2.0, the various ones. So I don't plan on carrying like an extra of those, because like we're talking like $50 for a DisplayPort cable. It's something you guys need to put in your budget. Now, granted, if you have a monitor that's actually DisplayPort 2.0, you're spending at least as much as that thing, probably, which is, you know, $800 on sale, $1,300 at full MSRP. You're spending at least that much, so just remember to spend another $50 on a good cable. If they include a DisplayPort 2.0 cable, you're going to get a 1 meter or 3-foot one, or even less. Some brands, if I recall, were shipping 1.5-foot cables, or just under 2-foot cables. Triple monitor guys, I'm sorry. Your monitor is here. You have 1.5 feet to there. That's it. And that's what it comes with. So basically budget yourself for a proper 6-foot. I don't know if we'll ever get anything longer than that, because the bandwidth needed is insane. So yeah, I'll follow up with if this guy worked. Well, that guy definitely doesn't work. That guy's dead. But this guy, we're going to try and swap the drives over, like the boot drives, and see if just like this one, once we got the old boot drives out of there and into a new NUC 14, boom, Windows is up, Windows is running. I did then tune up, you know, like you do the repairs on Windows, you do an in-place upgrade, then we could give all the drivers a refresh because it's a new system, yada, yada, yada. But the fact that Windows is like, oh yeah, I'm fine now. It's very hard to tell certain times when nothing is flagging as bad in the hardware and you actually have a hardware-induced software error. Especially when it's not like a clean blue screen or something like that, which this isn't. This is just mysteriously slow systems, you know. And basically on that guy, the more I fixed it, the worse it got. And then BIOS update, booted up once into Windows, worked fine. Shut down, never turned on again. Similar story over here. Like I said, SFC twice. You always run it twice. Reboot, check again, see if it finds errors. Now, if you do SFC, check again, and it finds errors again, and then you check again and finds errors again, time to reinstall Windows. Or at least try an in-place upgrade, because the SFC isn't going to fix itself. You could try a DISM and then go back to SFC to see if it's fixed. But in this case, I did an SFC, fixed stuff, second SFC, found nothing. I'm like, okay, on to DISM. DISM stalled at 56% 3 times. So then I'm like, okay, we'll skip that onto the check disk. Check disk, successful. Windows is now dead. So whatever files the check disk found and disk checked good, or like were deleted or replaced that were corrupt, must have been something it needed, because alright, so we've got an update. It's dark because I'm tired. New one's opened up. Drives from old one next to cat food. Alright, new one. However, we get SRT trail.txt error. Back in the Geek Squad days, that meant fucking reinstall Windows. Now, the one thing I noticed when the NVMe came out of that guy, oh, if you're wondering why I have a Band-Aid on my fingy, that's because the old NUC bit me when I took out its SATA SSD, right? And got a nice cut on that sheet metal in there. So SRT trail.txt, not always, but like most of the time meant you fucked, reinstall Windows. The weird thing here is with this, I tried doing the fixes to it, but I cannot find the System32 folder. And like there's something you can do the config file to fix srt trail.txt. Now, that being missing, and the Windows file being the only recently modified thing, points to potentially BitLocker. So before I did any other mucking around, I decided to go and image it. You can see my Acronis drive there. It's a bit out of date. That was when they did the Acronis cybersecurity home protect nonsense. They've now redone it back to true image. However, there is no single device, or actually single device true image is the same price as triple device true image. And triple device even has a discount. However, that's now $80. It used to be $50. And on Black Friday, it used to go on sale for like $25 or $30. Sadly, especially with dealing with Windows 11 coming up, I might have to buy the new one. Because the version I have didn't exist, or Windows 11 didn't exist yet. However, the BitLocker seems to be confirmed by that when I try and image it. I did have to take secure boot off in order to boot to the Acronis drive. That's pretty normal. But then we get that. The issue with that is that I have now already signed into the Microsoft account that is used on this PC, as well as the other one we've done. There are no BitLocker recovery keys. Do you want to know why there are no BitLocker recovery keys? Because I wouldn't have BitLockered it, because it's a desktop for cows. It doesn't matter. Oh, and I don't know if I went to, in here, in the old guy, the NVMe came out and it looked like a banana. Like it was like bent like that much. Right in the middle, there is a dark spot as well. Right below that dark spot is where the non-removable Wi-Fi adapter is in the 10th gen. Right? So, does it actually have BitLocker? Somewhat indicating by the the very recently updated Windows folder. Or is it because of, and like the very recently updated Windows folder and the missing Suite 32 folder? Or is the drive so corrupted due to the bananaing and the like weird heating that it thinks it has BitLocker? You know, Acronis thinks it does, but it's just fucked. Yep. So I got one other account I can try to get into because there's another one that was on the other system. However, it was not syncing with it anymore. So if this thing auto-converted it to BitLocker, being that the account was no longer syncing with the computer, it would not have backed up the key. So now we're getting into even more stuffed territory, because I won't, if that is truly BitLockered, I won't be able to get access to the data off of it. There is you're like, but you have that secondary SATA SSD. Yes, we do. So we can rely on that if we have to. However, what is super annoying about that is that I will have to reconfigure the programs and reinstall everything from scratch. So, this is where we get into, it's worth the time to put it in to fix this Windows if I can, because it's more trouble to go and set up all the cow software. So, let me know what you guys think about everything we covered here. There's all my repair flash drives. And there's Miss Paisley Marie, who has taken my chair.